So I wanted to talk about karma. Um, it's a word that's used everywhere, every day. There's even a car named Karma. So everybody hears the word, but oftentimes it's used incorrectly. For example, usually karma is used to mean somebody's going to get something bad that they deserve, someone you don't like, usually. But the truth of the matter is that karma just means that everything you do has come back to you, both good and bad. So, for example, if somebody stole your car, I saw this recently. Somebody stole a bicycle in my neighborhood, and the victim put a poster up that said, missing bike, and then underneath it said, your karma's going to get you. But what they didn't understand is that the victim had karma to have his bike stolen. So the thief will have a return, but the reason this all happened was because of the victim's karma. He had the karma to have something taken away from him. And there's a couple points to bring up about that. One is the nature of karma itself, and the second is we shouldn't use it as an excuse not to care. We should always care about people's problems. So, about the nature of karma itself, when I first started studying Buddhism, I was fortunate enough to study it from a Tibetan monk, and karma is the a central tenet of Buddhism. And one of the key aspects of it was that if you look at your world as it is right now, that is a product of your perception. And your perception is created by your past thoughts, deeds, or actions. So you see the world a certain way because you perceive it that way. And you perceive it that way because you have the karma to perceive it that way. So the first part, perception. Here's a good example. Take any president of the United States and ask 100 people what they think about him or her. And they will say, yeah, I love the guy, best president we ever had. Or they'll say, worst president we ever had. How can people see one person so differently? And the mundane human mind says, well, the other people are stupid. They don't have the knowledge that I have. But that's not the case. I'll give you another example. Your boss at work. He's good to you, but other people feel he's difficult to work with. So they say he's a terrible boss, and you say he's an awesome boss. How do you have two experiences from the same person? To the Buddhist mind, it is not because the boss treats one person different than the other. That's a how to the question, but it's not the why. Why does the boss treat this person different than that person? To the Buddhist mind, the answer lies in karma. One person had the karma to create an environment where they work and are treated poorly by their supervisor or boss, and another person had the karma to be treated really well. And that's the answer. So it's almost like you're creating, it is like in Buddhism, that you're creating your worldview moment by moment, that your world is shaping itself based on your thoughts right now and your actions right now. So if you see the world and you see a problem in the world, you don't blame someone else for it. You have to take responsibility in Buddhism and resolve it. And how you resolve it is inward. So if you see poverty, you can, of course, it's very great to go out there and help those in poverty, giving to them with food, money, shelter. You're supposed to do that. But to solve it, you have to go inward, because the poverty, from a Eastern perspective, is an aspect that is spiritual. It's your perception that sees the poverty. And if you want that to stop, you need to find the reason why you see it and resolve it inwardly. If you see violence, well, maybe you have some violent thoughts, or aggression issues, or anger issues. If you see hatred, what do you hate? If you end your hatred, you end the hatred that you see in the world. I'll give you an example myself. I get angry all the time at people that, one of my buttons is people who are fundamentalist. They come into your worldview, and they come into your space and they say, my worldview is the only way that's right. You only get to God through my worldview. Everybody else is wrong. And it's a very frustrating thing for me, especially when it's not even logical to itself. And I get angry about it, and I see their anger. Well, I'm seeing them in my life because of my decisions and my actions. And you're seeing people in your life because of your decisions and your actions and your thoughts. So some people say, well, this is all Eastern religion. I'm not that, I'm a Christian. Okay. The Bible actually says the same thing. It says, as you sow, so shall you reap. Meaning the actions and deeds and thoughts you do now will return to you. That's called karma. So there isn't this is just Eastern religion. This is a lot of different faiths have this idea. Not just the Eastern beliefs of Hinduism and Buddhism, but also Jesus taught this as well, that there is a return to your actions. And that's why in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus is approached by the Pharisees and the soldiers take him and Peter draws the sword, that Jesus chastises him. And you have the classic, don't you know those who live by the sword die by the sword? That's an example of, as you sow, so shall you reap. And I think it's clouded in Christianity because there's so many teachings in the Old Testament where supposedly God sends people out to kill in his name, because you think, well, if they did those actions, they're going to return to them. Why would God have them do that? Right. But, I don't really follow the Old Testament. I think it's best to keep a spiritual mindset, and that's pretty opposite of a spiritual mindset. I stay focused on teachings of Buddha, Krishna, modern teachers, and Jesus, because they had a spiritual message, one that wasn't based in the mundane world. Because God doesn't need land. He doesn't need a place. He doesn't need you to fight a war for him or her. And that's just silliness. So, karma is a paramount subject because it not only explains what will happen to you through your actions, but also why you had the actions in the first place. It removes the blame of, he's the bad guy who did something to me, and says, we're both the same. Brings an equality. And that's a little difficult to take in extreme situations. But if you start simply and say, I want to change my world right now, I'm going to change my actions. And I did this. The Buddhist monk I studied under, he saw that I was in a really bad financial situation. I barely had money to eat. I worked 50 hours a week and I had no money because of debts and a divorce. So I began to reach out in different directions, and he told me for a solution, and he told me a solution. And his solution was to understand karma first, and then after I understand it, start giving away money that I do have to those less fortunate than me, with the understanding that as I give, it will be given back to me. So I began to do that. And I had been in this situation, financial situation, for like 4 years at that time. But I gave, and after I started giving, within 3 months, I had a promotion at my job, I got a raise, and I got a bonus. But beyond that, I got out of all my debts through a miracle. My house had been underwater for years, and I was struggling, and no bank would let me cash out. And I was hoping to get some cash out of my home so I could pay off debts. No bank would touch me. Ditech, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, they told me the same thing. Your house has no value in it. But after I started this giving campaign and understanding karma and knowing I'm going to get a return on this, I'm changing my future, and really believing it, I got a little postcard in the mail, and it said, I'll get you out of debt. Call me to refi your home. And I thought, how appropriate. And I just called the person up, and he said the same thing. Your house is at this value of the market right now. But he said, let me look at your loan documents. So I sent him my loan documents. And oddly enough, he found a mistake. A mistake that was so big that fixing it with the same loan terms, meaning I didn't get a bigger loan, I didn't take cash out, just fixing that mistake got me enough money to get out of debt. So there I was, struggling to eat lunch, and working 40 to 50 hours a week, and transitioning to being out of all my debt. You know, I had no car payments anymore. Only payment I had was a house payment, which was the same, and I had no credit cards, nothing. Completely free of debt. Had a promotion and a bonus and a raise. Now, someone who doubts would say, well, that was coincidence. I don't believe that. I mean, I applied this to my life and it worked. I've applied it throughout my life and it's worked consistently. So that's my story. I do believe in karma. I also believe the world is not so physical, and I think it is largely based on perception. We do perceive things differently, and the way we perceive it is based on our past actions, which is why it's paramount to always care and have concern and have good feelings towards others, because we don't want to have a world where things are stolen from us, or we're frustrated, or we hate others, or we're surrounded in hatred. You know, all of that negativity is a result of our thoughts and actions that are selfish and egocentric. So that's what karma is. I hope it explains it a bit. It is simply the law of return. It is simply a mirror of your actions. It is not a judgment. There is no judgment in karma. It just is. It's what you did being shown back to you in some other way. And why this happens? Religions differ on why. Some believe that this is how we become perfected, that by seeing our actions coming back to us from so-called other people that we perceive, that we ultimately realize our mistake and we start making changes and become better until we reach enlightenment. Other people believe it's sort of a mechanism to become one with God. So whether you believe in God or not, I mean, the Buddhist doesn't believe in God, the Hindu does. They both believe in karma. Whether you believe in God or you don't, karma has validity, and it seems to work in my life as a integral factor for everything that's happened wrong and everything that happens that I enjoy. So I hope that helps explain it a little bit. Thanks for watching.